Talking season is officially over after this episode because we will be back at Saints training camp on Wednesday. The vets reported today. We're talking about a lot of things in this episode today, so stay with us throughout the show. We're going to be hitting Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. Is there a Greenbrier curse? Plus much more.
Yeah, a lot to talk about. One thing we are going to talk about, though, look at this guy here. Look at that. Oh, look at that. A bear. NewOrleans.Football got its own bear. Who would have thought? Anyways, if you're not...
We knew it was coming. It had to be.
It had to be. If you aren't signed up to our website yet, make sure you fix that. Get locked in for the whole entire season. 20% off your first payment with the code CAMP23. Unrivaled coverage of the Saints. Make sure you get locked in. We will make sure you are informed every step of the way in actual football season now that talking season is over. And if you need to start your day, make sure you go check out PJ's. They are a presenting sponsor. They support us, so you guys should support them. And we're coming to you from the Better Call Botto podcast studio. And if you are driving to a PJ's, you should probably do that in the car you buy from one of Matt Bauer's car dealerships. They're all over the Gulf Coast. I vouch for Matt's dealerships. They will take care of you, so go check them out if you are in the market for a new car. They got the best coffee, as we said, locations all over the city. So get there and start your day with them and maybe play our podcast alongside while you're sipping your coffee. And if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, 18-wheeler collisions, Maritime and Jones Act, hurricane and storm claims, you better call Botto at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation and case review. And check out Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. That is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries blended in New Orleans. It is not for the thin skin. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. And get to an Ideal Market, home of the freshest produce in the city. They do a great job. In the community, they received a Peter J. Larkin Award from the National Grocers Association for outstanding community support. They always bring the best quality food products at the best prices. They are the home of the largest variety of Hispanic and international foods you will find in the state. A hot deli that surpasses many restaurants in the flavor of their authentic Hispanic dishes, and also the best place to cash checks, wire money, pay bills. They have a complete customer service department like no other. And check out Firehouse Subs, Veteran Boulevard location. Great people doing great things for the community. All right, let's get into the show.
Training camp officially begins this week. The veterans reported today, and we will be back out at practice tomorrow. We're finally going to be able to put some action to our words that we've been talking about all offseason long. I'm excited to see some of the camp battles, but where are we going to start? Are we going to be inside the facility or actually outside on the practice field? Because there are record temperatures and there are going to be some rules and regulations that the Saints are going to need to follow as far as the heat index. Do we have any opinions on if they do practice inside or outside the majority of camp?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of these like junction boy believers. Like, I think you got to be smart about it, follow the science. And if it's too hot to get quality practices in, if you're maybe exhausting people, if injuries are a risk, I think they got to be smart about it and maybe move inside more than we've seen in the past. I wouldn't. I'm not saying that selfishly because I enjoy being inside. I hope all the, 7 days or 9 days for fans, I hope all those remain outside. But on the other ones, be smart about it. If you can go inside, you can get a better practice. I think that's what you got to do, because at the end of the day, it's about the amount of work you get in. I do think that there probably is some benefit to pushing through the heat and making guys a little bit stronger. But like the idea of like anything except extreme heat and sweat being soft is stupid. Yeah. And if you are someone that believes that, like, you know, let's follow the science here and be smart about what we're doing.
Yeah, I've never minded when teams add temperature to the equation, you know. When they went to the Greenbrier for 3 years. I know that's a bad word because it was 3 bad results that season. But to me, and look, we kind of talked a lot about how we thought last year's training camp was a little relaxed or a little short. I thought it was just short. That was the thing that stood out to me. To me, I want to see a lot of snaps. I don't care if they're snaps in extreme heat or snaps in air conditioning, but get everybody a lot of snaps. So, like, I don't want to see 90-minute practices, but if they move them indoors so they can get more work in, I'm all for it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Greenbrier, which gets into our Ideal segment presented by Ideal Market. Did destination camps make sense in the past? And there might have been a little bit of a Greenbrier curse in the past.
You know what the curse was? Let's look at this defensive lineup one of the years.
No.
This was the curse. Bobby Richardson, John Jenkins, Sheldon Rankins, but injured at the Greenbrier with the broken leg. That was his rookie year. Cam Jordan, Stephon Anthony, James Laurinaitis, Daniel Ellerbe, Delvin Breaux, PJ Williams, Kenny Vaccaro, and Jarris Bird, not the Jarris Bird of Buffalo. That was the curse. The curse was a bad team. It was falling backwards. That's why they were bad there. It wasn't because they had these like great teams and things didn't come together. 14 was the year they had expectations. They didn't have a defensive identity that year. And it was crazy. Like there was one of those years, I think it might've been 14 or 15. It was 15. We went out there and they started doing one defense in mini camp and OTAs. And then by training camp, they had changed their scheme completely to something else because Sean Payton had a different idea for the defense and nobody was ever on the same page. Those are the types of things that cursed them those years. It wasn't the location, because if you just go up about 2 hours north, it's even cooler. And the Patriots were winning a lot of Super Bowls in a much more comfortable climate. So it had nothing to do with it being soft, any of that stuff. They were a bad team and they had a bad roster.
Yeah, I remember when we had to defend that narrative a little bit. Like, I think the Cowboys might have been the number one team in the NFC and they were training in Oxnard. I mean, it's not the wear, but it was probably the attitude. That 2014 team, I have never seen more individual defensive players all sort of like campaigning for, this is going to be my Pro Bowl season. Rob Ryan's bravado was a part of that. And their 2013 defense was phenomenal, but a lot of guys overachieved that year. They came in 2014. You're right. That was the year they wanted to tinker with it, even though it worked the year before, make it more like what Seattle was doing at the time. They signed Jarris Bird. And it just imploded. It imploded, especially on that side of the ball. And then 15 and 16 were sort of mini rebuilding years. But yeah, then the Texans went there and they went from 3 straight 9-7 seasons to a 4-12 season. But they finally, the last team to train there before Cleveland this year, the Texans in 2018 went 11-5. So I guess maybe that ended the curse of the Greenbrier. But I guarantee you, Saints fans don't ever want to see the Saints go back. And look, even Tom Benson was like, they went 7-9 3 straight years. And I think the theory was, what are we paying for if these are the results? I don't know if we'll see the Saints go back there. Actually, if things, you mentioned the Junction Boys, like we've kind of joked about it. If things don't go well again this year, like whether it's Dennis Allen in year 3 or a new coach next year, we might see them go back to Millsaps and be like, all right, enough coddling you guys.
Well, somebody who was there in the Greenbrier, or at the Greenbrier, who was on the team, Cam Jordan, he hasn't necessarily agreed to new terms yet on a new contract, but where is he sitting at right now?
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I think that's a big thing hanging over this. You know, they do need to get that done. He's going to play. It's not like an issue if it doesn't get done. I've actually heard there's a little bit of progress on it, and it's something that I think might possibly be able to get done within the next few weeks. I think it's just makes too much sense for Cam to agree to a deal, Saints to agree to a deal. The way his contract is kind of structured, letting him go like financially doesn't make a ton of sense. I would keep him around it. Look, until other people step up, I think he's like key to this defensive line moving forward. And even if they are paying for, you know, kind of the back end of his career, still think he's a highly effective player. I think his numbers are going to be good. It's something that I'm expecting to get done fairly soon.
Yeah, we saw those two get an early extension done the last time he was due. That was a win-win. They made him like at the time something like the 5th highest paid defensive lineman. He's not trying to set a new bar. He just wants to be paid fairly and have both sides recognize, look, we want me to retire as a Saint, but let's just take some of the uncertainty out of it.
Well, on the other side of the ball, the Saints did invite Trey Turner, 5-time Pro Bowler, who's actually from New Orleans. You were able to confirm Adam Schefter's report that he is in town and the Saints are looking to try him out. But that kind of gets into our Martin Wine and Spirits question of the day. Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a wide selection of handpicked barrel select bourbon, whiskey, and more. And credit to Paul Kristen, who sent us this Twitter question of the day. He said, what free agent do you want the Saints to still go after? And I really like that Trey Turner is in town.
Well, yeah, look, you put together a list. I started picking some names that I was going to mention in this segment even before, we woke up this morning and confirmed that Trey Turner was in for a visit. And guards was one of the positions. I mean, we've talked about receivers. There was a report just the other day that Hunter Renfrow, that no team has talked to has approached the Raiders about a trade or made an offer for him, and that they haven't been shopping him. But that one has always been looming as a maybe Hunter Renfrow still happens. If that doesn't happen, do they need a receiver? Jarvis Landry has always popped into my head as somebody who could still fit this team, even though it didn't work out so well last year. That could depend on health, because they obviously have a lot of bodies there. But linebacker and guard were kind of the other two, especially after Billy Price just got hurt. So it makes a lot of sense. And there's other good ones out there too, Dalton Risner, Ben Jones. But I think one question that probably popped into everyone's head was, oh no, does this mean like Cesar Ruiz failed his physical or Andres Pete failed his physical? It is a reminder that they signed veteran center Billy Price at the end of OTAs and minicamp, and last week they cut him when he failed his physical with a non-football injury. So it feels like a depth move, just like Billy Price was at this point to me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with a bunch of those. Some of the other guys I would put in there, I think Ngoku is kind of at the top of my list. He's someone I think that they could come in, make a significant difference. The other guy that I circled, and he's a little bit older, but I think Kyle Van Noy could be really interesting as a Caden Ellis replacement. He's played off the ball linebacker. He's been an edge rusher, kind of has that combination of skills that you could put together and maybe plug into that spot and get similar production without having to hurt your scheme too much. And I don't know if he has anything left, but there's a theme here. Every guy on my list, I wrote down 3 names. They're all pass rushers. I'm passing on Clowney because I just don't know. Like, I don't want to advocate for him. If they brought him in, he could be good and give you 9 sacks, or he could give you 2. It's a little bit too much like Marcus Davenport-y for me. Like, I want a little bit of assured production. I don't know what Melvin Ingram has left, but he could be someone that's cheap and gives you some of that situational pass rush as well. But here's the thing, like, this is the biggest question for me going into camp is just, it is that pass rush. I don't know what they have there. They might have all the answers. They might not. And without the data to kind of look at it and say definitively they're fine, you know, I got to look at it and be scared because I don't know if Carl Granderson's going to take the next step. I don't know what Peyton Turner's going to do. I don't know what Foskey's going to do. So, I don't know what Zach Bond's going to do is that other linebacker, someone that could come in and pass rush. So if they could add another person to that mix, that's the move that I would make. And if they did that, I think I would feel much more secure about the direction of the defense moving forward.
Yeah, when I was looking at the list online of just guys who haven't been picked up yet, obviously we mentioned Jarvis Landry just because he was on the team last year. He's still available. Leonard Fournette, Shelby Harris, who's a defensive line 8-year vet. He was recently with Seattle. We mentioned Trey Turner, who's a 5-time Pro Bowler, and he's from New Orleans. And we've seen this new coaching staff kind of dabble into bringing the guys back to their hometown. Dalton Risner, he's a guard, 4-year was with the Broncos. Taylor Lewan, offensive tackle with the Titans. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler. He spent 9 years in Tennessee. He was most recently with the Titans, all 9 years actually with Tennessee. And then Ben Jones is a center that I think they should key in on. Look, he's an 11-year vet, so he's a little bit older. But he was a Pro Bowler last year. That was his first Pro Bowl, was in 2022. And then you had mentioned the one that was surprising to me is that Jadeveon Clowney is still available, and also Robert Quinn. Yeah. So it's out there if the Saints want to bring in guys and shop them. We'll see if maybe not shop them, but kind of try them out, and we'll see if shop for them. Yeah, and we'll see what other teams might pick these guys up too.
Defensive end is where there's still a lot of stars available. And I remember we talked, if they didn't draft one, if they hadn't gone Brzee, Foskey 1-2, I think it would have been a must to sign one of those guys right away after the draft. But the one position, like, we loved the Jamal Williams signing at the time. It felt like great value and it felt like a great fit. But geez, they're free. The running back position, we talked about this with the guys who are getting stuck on the franchise tag, but it's not just Leonard Fournette. It's Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook and Kareem Hunt. It's ridiculous how many running backs are still out there, but the Saints don't seem like they need one.
Playing devil's advocate on that, though, like I kind of like the Jamal Williams fit better than someone that has an expectation of carries. Like, he's been in situations where he's been the league guy, he's not been the league guy. I think they have someone with the right mentality to come in. Like,
no question.
Yeah, he's got things to. I'm not like questioning his motivation, but some of these other guys I think have a little bit more like ego and things to prove. Like, Zeke's going to come in and, like, he's going to be pissed if he doesn't get enough carries probably in a certain situation, and I don't think he can be guaranteed that here. Yeah,
that's a good point. Well, are you drafting Michael Thomas this season? We're going to get to that right after the break.
Now, at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company, get our $10.99 shrimp remoulade combos with zesty shrimp remoulade and fried shrimp or catfish for only $10.99. And did you hear? Soft-shelled crabs are back at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company.
Life is full of unexpected events, which can come with unplanned expenses. Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union has a variety of personal loan products to meet your needs. Whether it's treating yourself to something new, paying off an unexpected expense, or consolidating debt, we are here to help. With rates as low as 8.5% APR, a personal loan with Jefferson Financial can help. Don't let life's curveball impact your financial happiness. Apply today at jeffersonfinancial.org. Membership restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience.
This is a topic we've actually kind of held on to, the Are You Drafting Michael Thomas this season, which gets into our money segment presented by Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union. Who would be a good value pick from the Saints in fantasy that will outperform where they are drafted?
Yeah, I mean, this came up because someone tweeted something about, would you draft Michael Thomas? I said, yeah. And then, I don't know, people like started jumping on it or whatever. You're insane if you don't draft Michael Thomas in fantasy. He's going to go like he's like in like the 10th round. I looked in some of these drafts. My strategy in fantasy football, and if you're in my like one of my leagues, please turn this off right now. But look, I'm trying to get bang for the buck. If I can draft somebody like in the 10th, 11th, 12th round that could potentially be a starter, that's how you win leagues. You just have to outmaneuver people. He's someone that you could draft there that could be great. Now, like, we don't know if he's going to play 12 games. We don't know if he's going to play 8 games. We don't know if he's going to play 17. That's kind of the risk there. But like, the flip side is you can draft Rondale Moore and have a guy that you're never going to put into your lineup because he's never going to accumulate enough points to warrant a starting spot unless someone's on a bye. You might draft Mike in the 10th round and he might be your best player next season. So I'm looking for upside in all these spots. He's someone that has significant upside. And I was like shocked this was a controversial take. Like there's other people that like talk about the Saints. Like, I don't know what Nick's talking about. Like, dude, like it's just, he might be a very good value fantasy pick. And if you miss, just go grab somebody off the waiver wire and replace them. It's really not that complicated.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more and with the strategy. I mean, I get scared off by Mike Thomas injury risks if they're in my top 5 rounds or my top 3 rounds. But yeah, when you're getting him in the 10th round, you will start him. Yeah, you will start him every week that he is starting for the Saints. So I absolutely like that. I kind of wonder if that's a good strategy with Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara has also fallen. Like, I saw one person rank him 40th among running backs, but mostly it's like 20 to 25. There could be decent value there, but I kind of want to stay away from Alvin and Jamal Williams where they're being drafted because I don't know how often I would trust putting them in the starting line because I think they're going to divide carries. Kendrick Miller is probably the one guy I'd want to take at the end just in case. Like, what if he booms? But they're all going to, the opposite of Mike Thomas, they're all going to make you wonder week to week, should I start any of these Saints running backs when they're all in the lineup plus Taysom Hill? But this whole thing, the whole Saints team is value picks in fantasy this year. Chris Olave is going to be the only high pick on their entire team. I like Juwan Johnson and Taysom Hill. It's a position where at tight end, if you don't get Travis Kelce, then make tight end your last pick of your draft. And in most, even 12-team leagues, Juwan Johnson can be the last pick of your draft. If it's non-PPR, Taysom Hill can be the last pick of your draft. And I would do it because he's going to score as many tight end or touchdowns as any other tight end. Derek Carr, like he's like going outside of the top 20 fantasy quarterbacks. One person had him 28th that I looked up. Like, I always have, especially around here, Saints fans who like to pick their Saints in fantasy. And I'm always like, what are you doing taking Drew Brees in round 1, Michael Thomas in round 2? Like, your fantasy season is over and your Saints season is over if they get hurt. But this is the perfect stretch. If you're a Saints fan, your last 6 picks of your draft can all be Saints this year. You can have Rashid Shaheed for free, Kendra Miller for free, Juwan Johnson for free, Derek Carr for free. Just save your Saints for the end. Juwan Johnson's my favorite, though. I didn't see anyone ranking him in their top 12 tight ends. And if I can wait to the last round of my draft and make Juwan Johnson my tight end, I love it.
Who's your one? If you have to pick one off the Saints team.
Oh, it's Chris Olave. Absolutely. He's definitely a guy. And look, I think he might actually end up going like a little bit lower. Like, people are probably taking Garrett Wilson before him. I haven't done a fantasy study, but I'm assuming. And I bet Chris Olave has a chance of having a better season. Now, I saw the highlight yesterday, Garrett Wilson making like an incredible back of the end zone catch from Aaron Rodgers. And it was just like, oh my God, like these two guys are going to be incredible together. Yeah. So I might regret making the statement because he has like the supercharged quarterback throwing him the ball. But I think Olave is probably maybe just a tad underrated just in the conversation overall. Because if he doesn't drop some of these passes that he was dropping last year going to the ground, and he does add that little bit of strength, and then you add consistent quarterback play, I think his numbers are going to go way up.
Yeah, I looked him up. I probably looked up about like 10 rankings. Yeah, ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, Action Network. Olave was by far the most consistently ranked. Like there was one website where they all had him ranked 14th exactly, but the range was like 12 to 16, 12 to 18 among receivers. Yeah, I'd love it if he's your number 2 receiver. That'd be awesome. I think he's going to put up wide receiver 1 numbers.
Well, you mentioned Alvin Kamara earlier. Man, he's been in a good mood lately. It's been a while since we've seen him interact on Twitter like he did in the last few days. Are we underrating the fact that all of the court stuff being behind Kamara could mean that he's finally going to break out?
Whoa. Let's ask the important questions here. How do you say his last name? Let's go around the room. Let's go around the room.
I'm going Kamara.
Yeah.
I'm Kamara. Yeah, Kamara all the way. Yeah. All the way.
Kamara, he always gives the same answer, and he did it on Twitter, and this is what he said for years. He goes, my mom calls me Kamara, and I say Kamara. It's like, well, you defer to the guy, right? I mean, moms are great, but you defer to the guy.
You got to defer to the mom, really.
He's overruled his own mother.
See, I learned how to say his name because like Mark Ingram put out a video and he's like Kamara. I was like, all right, well that's it. Like that's how I'm saying it. So yeah.
No, and the fact that he put that out there, how many times have we probably corrected people, or we've heard national media say his name because I say Kamara, but if I can't even say it the other way, Kamara.
Yeah.
It just doesn't flow off the tongue the same way.
In reporting, I'm deferring to the guy. In life, I'm deferring to the mother, though. The mom's always right. The mom's always right.
I would not overrule my own mother. Like, she named me and I stuck with it.
Yeah. Well, he obviously, like you mentioned, he has been in a good mood lately. A lot of this stuff has been settled and is behind him now. Could it mean a big season for Kamara?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this when Mike Thomas put out that hype video, that just any little signs, even though you're probably overrate that stuff, that someone's in a good headspace, it can't hurt. I mean, unfortunately, Alvin Kamara is still a running back with 6+ years of mileage on him. We've started to see it in the production in the last few years. The explosiveness hasn't quite been there. And from a production standpoint, he's now going to share in a backfield that has Jamal Williams and Kendry Miller and Taysom Hill and stuff. But yeah, if this offensive line can get somewhat healthy, if Pete Carmichael has thrown out a lot of the things they did last year and decided to get more creative with his usage this year, if they're going to get him more involved in the passing game, I absolutely expect more production on a per touch basis from Kamara this year than we've seen in the last previous 2 years. Like, I don't think all of a sudden it's going to look like 2018 all over again, but I really do think he can have his best year in 3 years as far as an impact on a touch-by-touch basis.
I think so, too. You mentioned a lot of the wear and tear. I keep thinking about the game in Cleveland and how just brutal that was for him. They had the wetsuits on underneath their jerseys. What was it, like, feels like temps of -20. He's not going to have to experience that this season. Like we mentioned, it's a little bit of a softer schedule, and he shouldn't have a ton of wear and tear because there is a crowded backfield. So I feel like when he is going to have the ball, he might look like the 2018 Alvin Kamara. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm not together. No, I mean, look, I think it's there's realism, and there's just, this is why it's talking season though. Like anytime one of these guys do something, we're like, yes, like this is, Alvin's happy, like he's back. Like Alvin's always a happy guy. I don't think he was ever really down in the dumps. I mean, obviously he was going through some stuff, but I think everything we said before, I think there's still a realistic expectation of he's getting closer to the back end of his career. 2020 is the Alvin season. Like for me, that was peak Alvin. That was one of the greatest seasons of all time, I think. And it's a shame that it kind of got lost in like COVID, but that was peak Alvin. And since then, it just hasn't been there. But I do think system, better players around him, better support that can help him be a little bit better, can help him be more consistent, can help him get into better positions to succeed. So he can be better than he probably was the last few years. But like the idea of peak prime Alvin coming back, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I think he can still be really, really good, but I think his absolute best season is back here, and there's the rest of his career going forward.
Alvin is always happy, and Alvin is always like colorful, and he doesn't feel like the person with like Twitter fingers and intense and I have to prove something. But if there is I have to prove something, he's feeling that right now. I mean, this is the first offseason where I think people have somebody ranked him as the 40th running back in fantasy. Like some people are like ready to ship him off the team and be like, we're good. We got Jamal Williams, Kendry Miller now. Like I could see however much intensity and motivation and fire and mood and all that can affect a running back. We don't, I think, give him enough credit for. He's probably got a chip on his shoulder this year.
This isn't the first time. He actually said it last year that I see everybody saying I'm washed. I see everybody saying this. I'm not. I'm good. Like I'm still the same guy.
He tweeted something out like that recently too.
His tweet was hilarious. Somebody said, "I heard you're washed," and he goes, "It's true. I just got out of the shower."
Yes, this definitely isn't the first, but this is probably the most he's felt it because they did take action against him. They signed Jamal. They drafted a running back. If you're a guy his age, you're looking at that and saying like, all right, like how much longer do I have here? Do they still want me or they replace me? So I don't think it's the first time he's felt it, but it's manifested in actual like real action. Like there's when he goes in the locker room this week, he's going to look and there's two guys there that are there to take his carries, to take his job, to put his standing with the team in jeopardy. That's what they need to be doing. And Alvin's job is to make sure that doesn't happen. So I like the situation from that. If you need something extra, I'm someone that needs something extra. I go through and like read old texts from like 5 years ago some days just because it's like, all right, like you said this, F you, I'm going to go show you today. Yeah. So that is a real thing. Like there is an extra level. And if he can get that this year, I mean, maybe it does help. It can't hurt. I mean, that's for certain.
Well, and body language spoke volumes at mandatory minicamp when Alvin was out there, and you saw the way he interacted with the other running backs. Not that it was a bad thing, but there's competition there, and he's somebody that is.
Oh yeah, we talked about people on Twitter saying he's washed. How about the rookie running back saying, "With all due respect to Alvin Kamara, I don't like being a backup." Like that stuff all matters too, and that doesn't mean they're not going to get along. Like he probably appreciates that competitive spirit, and he probably is going to show him how to read defenses and how to run every play, and then he's going to be like, but I'm going to do it better than you.
All right, it's still officially talking season for one more day?
One more day?
One more day, because the Saints are back on Wednesday officially for practice. So let's put a bow on the 2022 season as training camp is about to get started. We're going to get into our moment presented by New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company. Give me your best and worst moment from last season.
Well, I think the best, and I hate to be so basic here, but it was the comeback against Atlanta for me. Like Jameis was incredible during that. That was an incredible finish to that game. And I think it was probably the best feeling anybody had about this team the whole entire season coming off that field. People were just, the team was elated. The fans were elated. Like it was a great moment for the team. And it kind of feels like everything was kind of downhill from there. Yeah. So that was absolutely for me, the number one point of the season.
I'll go with that. I mean, that's hard to top because at that time, I think we had realistically high expectations for him. I wrote my first story for NewOrleans.Football after that week, also about the impact Jarvis Landry had on the team.
Oh, yeah.
Not only what he did on the field, but how he was the first one, like hugging Dennis Allen saying, you told us. And I was like, what a team leader he is. And like that never materialized either. And then everybody got hurt after that. I liked the Cleveland when you just brought it up in freezing temperatures and everything. At that time, they were still mathematically alive in the NFC South race. And it was just such a, and that was after so much had gone wrong for the team. I liked seeing them rally under those circumstances and win a game that required so much like mental fortitude, being out of their element and everything like that. So I thought that was maybe their most impressive, had a game plan, stuck to it, and went out and did it performance of the year last year.
All right, worst moment.
So you just teed me up right there. Really, the worst moment for me was the first half of that Cleveland game because it was just like, what are you doing? What is your game plan? You can't figure it out. So if you had went first on this topic, I was going to use that game as like the worst and the best because that was my number two. But yeah, I think that was kind of like the low point for me. It was just like that was one of the first times ever watching a game where I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I don't understand what they're trying to do. Like when people are tweeting like, what's the game plan? They're predictable, It's usually like, I understand like what they're trying to do. I can rationalize what's happening. In that game, I was like, I don't get it. I was like sitting there getting ready to like write okay, they need to change direction on offense. Like that was where my head was at. And then it was like, oh, they figured it out. And it was fine. It was like, all right, calm down. Like they got this. You're not smarter than everybody out there. But, that was a really low point for me watching that first half of that game for them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That was more from a game plan standpoint. And I think what I was talking about is even throwing that in that they had whatever fortitude to win that game. That was are we going to watch this team just give up for the last 5 weeks of the season? And they didn't. And then they went on to, beat Philadelphia, I think the very next week or a couple weeks later. But worst point, I'm going to combine two games that I think were in like 5 days. in hindsight, losing that Cincinnati game to me was the one that really ruined the whole season, because they had actually come back from their 1-3 start and their trip to London, and they looked good against Seattle, and then they looked really good against Cincinnati, and they were almost going to salvage the season, and then they blow it in the final seconds by not being able to get, I think it was 2 3-and-outs and giving up a 60-yard pass to Jamar Chase, and it was like, that would have been a signature win for this team. Cincinnati was a really good team. And then they go to Arizona, and Andy Dalton throws the 2 pick sixes in the first half, and Alvin Kamara had to give the speech to the team about, like, this is not, I mean, it felt like it was all over in week 7 at that point, when they were competitive in a lot of ways in those games too, and they blew them both with just colossal mistakes. And it was like, it was week 7 and we felt like this season is over now. And so that was the low point for me.
Tampa game?
Yeah. God. Which both, frankly.
Pittsburgh was miserable to sit through.
Yeah, Pittsburgh was horrible.
There were a lot of low points.
That was the most dejected I've ever seen a locker room in my life.
Yeah,
But you know what? An honest
terrible.
locker room. That was the first time I think I had heard, I don't want to say first time, but where I can remember the guys taking ownership on just how badly they were playing. Like Cam Jordan had a gouged eye, and I was like, why are you doing an interview with shades on? And then he showed me, and I'm like, all right. And he goes, no, let's go. We're doing this interview. Like, let's talk about what the issue is. Tyrann Mathieu was waiting on us to do an interview as well. And he was like, we're just a bad football team right now. And you actually brought up a couple really good points that I kind of forgot in the 2022 season. It's not like they were always down last year. I mean, there was constant Kamara trying to say, let's rally the troops and let's fix this. There was many moments during last season. And then I think Pittsburgh is honestly when it was just like, all right, this is who we are. It
was a pretty lousy Pittsburgh team, too.
That's why the fire DA talk never really took root with me, because it was just like, the team isn't quitting. They're still playing hard.
Yeah.
If you keep playing hard, eventually things are going to turn around a little bit. Yeah.
Nobody expected that game to go the way it did. I believe it was New Year's Eve or on New Year's Day in Philadelphia, because we were actually at the Cotton Bowl with WWL for Tulane, and I just remember watching it. And we've said before on this show that some of us may be Eagles fans, and I was like, are you kidding me? This is the one game the Saints win. And of course, Philadelphia obviously went to play in the Super Bowl, but geez.
Yeah, there was a point last year that, like, where it felt like things were teetering a couple times behind the scenes. People were starting to get frustrated. You start to hear some things, and like every single time, DA kept the team together. They kept fighting. They kept playing hard. They never quit. And that's why the fire stuff just didn't make sense. Now, they go into this season and they crap the bed and they're still playing hard. I think at that point, like, all right, like, you got to make a real decision here.
It's the coaches at this point.
Yeah. But last year, and some of it was coaching last year, but like, they just never stopped believing. And that's what actually mattered. And it was kind of there were a few inflection points last year. And there were a couple of weeks where, like, you start to hear some stuff and you're like, man, I don't know. Like, I'm a little bit worried about how this week's going to go. Like, people are starting to, get frustrated and stuff, and it just never materialized in an actionable manner. So that was incredibly important. The way they finished the season was incredibly important.
Except for week 18. Speaking of low points, it was like, for crying out loud, why did you throw in your worst performance? Why not, like, win? Would it have been winning 3 of their last 4? Winning their last 3 in a row?
I think so.
Is what they almost did. And they lost to a team where Sam Darnold completed like 2 total passes. Oh, that was the ugliest game of the season. That was the most forgettable moment of the season, because I bet a lot of people don't even remember it happened.
Well, and us having Teron Armstead on recently, and he even mentioned too that this is a team that believes in DA from the start. And I think them knowing that Dennis Allen's job is on the line is going to play into how the guys play this season. Of course, you got some new faces in with Derek Carr, but it's almost like his career's on the line too. He's wanting to prove that he can still be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. So it's a very much prove it year with the Saints. I think the expectations are a little bit higher because Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael are both on the hot seat.
If you believe in these things, like we were talking about, Alvin, chip on your shoulder, the ultimate cliche is urgency. There can't be a team or a roster full of coaches and players with more urgency than go down the line. The veteran players, the coaches, everybody on this team should have the highest sense of urgency that a team can have.
It's interesting in the NFL too. I feel like we talk a lot about these kind of things materializing and why a team plays hard. Is very much a college football mindset. You rarely see this on the NFL side of things, where a team really rallies behind a head coach that, hey, and really rallying around trying to save, like, the Saints standing in the national headlines too.
Yeah, no, it's an important season. They got all money in. So, I mean, if they bust, there's going to be a lot of busting. And, I think it changes the trajectory of the franchise if they aren't a good team this year. Like, I think, like, the foundation gets torn down. You try to find a new identity. It gets built with people that don't probably have Parcell ties and all this stuff. Obviously, Mickey Loomis is always going to be there. But I think just the whole entire direction, their way of doing things, their way of existing, their way of thinking, if they aren't a good team, like I think all that is literally like on the line this season. I think they're going to protect it though. If they don't, I mean, then it is time to throw all this stuff out because it's just failed catastrophically.
Well, the work starts Wednesday, and be sure to be on NewOrleans.Football. Nick, you can mention some of the things that are going to be new this training camp as far as keeping up with us updates-wise at practice. Yeah,
we got the live updates on the website, so make sure you're checking that out. 2 videographers out at every practice, best photographer in the world out at every practice, best social media manager out at every practice, the A-team here out at every single practice. Sign up for the site, 20% off, Camp 23. That'll get you a saving on your first payment. And look, everything you guys invest in us, we put back in the product. You can literally see it, and we're going to have the best camp coverage anywhere in the NFL. So get down or lay down.
Yeah, and if you like what we've been doing, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, podcasts, however you've been listening. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you Wednesday.